Three,
Okay.
2, 1.
Hello, and welcome back to Sculpture Saturday. My name is Riley Fichter. I'm the park manager here at Josephine Sculpture Park.
And I'm Jeri Catherine Howell. I'm the program director at Josephine Sculpture Park. And it's a little snowy and icy at the park right now. So Riley and I are going to talk with you all via Zoom/video. All right. So Riley just installed this amazing piece at Josephine Sculpture Park titled Fixation. And you all just saw a video of that install. So Riley, how'd you come up with the concept for Fixation?
Fixation, I initially started with a model way back before like any of this started to come to terms. And it started off when I initially got here at the onset of COVID-19. I was experimenting with a lot of the materials that were around. And amidst like cleaning up and organizing, I was able to find a bunch of steel and other found objects. And with my time here at Josephine Sculpture Park, I was able to explore the telephone poles that the park had accumulated over time. Several other pieces have used it to great success here in the park. But what I was really fascinated by were the artifacts and the different intricacies that were available on each of these telephone poles, and all the stories and history that were left unsaid, and then being taken down and eventually recycled to be collected and used by artists like myself. So I wanted to create a piece that both displayed these intricacies and this history of these poles, and instead of having them continue to be byproducts and recycled materials, instead transform them into something sculptural and useful that engages with the space and allows an audience to not only explore those artifacts, but allow them to explore the environment around it as a place of quiet contemplation. So
Awesome.
just kind of working with what I got, and it eventually turned into Fixation.
So I don't know if folks could tell from the video, but the telephone poles are suspended and can move.
Mm-hmm.
And why did you want that to be part of the piece?
I felt like, and this has cropped up in prior pieces that I have, kinetic motion, especially when applied to public sculpture, it makes the pieces almost more alive as it engages with the environment. I've said of prior pieces that I take inorganic material, or take lifeless materials, and I try to give them a breath of life. And I do that with methods like involving them kinetically, or installing them up in the air so that they can be moved around with the wind so that they get that kinetic movement. So it's a bit more engaging rather than just static.
Right. So how did the work change over time as challenges or new ideas arose?
It's an interesting question. So I think the best way to describe that is how it changed from model to final product. I initially explored the telephone poles and knew from the onset that those were what I wanted to use as part of the piece. As I started building the model, fabricating it down from a 1:7 scale, making sure the proper measurements, figuring out things like how it was going to be suspended, where I was going to add certain supports such as gussets, and other structural supports that it doesn't bow or bend as it exists out in the park, so it doesn't break or anything like that. That as I was figuring out these different structural elements, the design of it slowly started to change. So at first it didn't have, it had more cross beams. I thought I needed more supports to hold up these telephone poles. And then I cut those down and made the form a bit more minimal. And then when it came to constructing the frame itself, I was able to adjust aesthetically how it appeared, as well as decide that the base was going to go underneath the ground when I initially thought that the shape of the frame that I had constructed was going to be above. And that was more in response to the install environment, which is now a hill outside of just around in Josephine Sculpture Park, that I made that decision. And some of the final decisions were when we were putting up those telephone poles. deciding which ones were the most interesting, which sizes worked out best, even as we were installing and rigging it up, choosing like which angles they were going to sit at, how they related to one another. So really the whole piece changed from conception to final installation. And I can say that I'm very pleased with the final product.
All right, so in that video, folks saw you were doing some stuff with your hands. What's up with that?
So the signals that I was giving are what I consider the JSP exclusive hand signals for skid loader operation. They're based off of hand signals for crane operation, and we've kind of ad hoc them to make it work for being safe when everything's really loud and you need to tell the skid loader operator like whether you need the load to go up, if you need it to go down a little bit, up and then down. If they need to tilt the forks of the skid loader down, they need to tilt the forks upwards, and then if we need to stop. So really, that's all, like I said, just for safety. And we try to keep as much eye contact as possible to make sure that each person is safe while that's occurring. And just making sure it's as effective as possible.
Nice. So when people are out at the park and they see you or Mel or me doing that,
they'll be in the know.
They'll know it.
We'll look at them and be like, make eye contact, be like,
yeah. Awesome. So you've been engaged with Josephine Sculpture Park for a while now. First as an art studio intern, and during that time you installed Rejuvenation, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And now you're the park manager and artist in residence, and you've installed Fixation so far, and I've seen that you're working on some other pieces. So how have these experiences at JSP impacted your artistic growth?
Sure. I think the biggest thing that's impacted at least my future conceptions of pieces that I want to create, is how active I've been with land management out here. It's really made me think a lot more about environmental conservation, sustainable action, and environmental advocacy. So both in working out here, working with you, working with the different volunteers that have coming in and out of JSP, and getting to work with the park now in all seasons, right? Like from fall to spring to summer to winter, and just seeing this place evolve and grow like as those seasons go on. And especially now, especially with Fixation, Rejuvenation, which are both found object pieces, and utilizing what I consider to be byproduct or waste. Not that it's damaging anything by being here, but they're things that are sort of left by the wayside, and finding ways to make them into something useful or aesthetically pleasing. So I feel like I've really matured conceptually in working out here, and I've also really matured with my craftsmanship and in my practice. So yeah, just all benefit in working out here.
Great. So what's it like to both work as the park manager and create sculpture as an artist in residence at JSP?
I got to be honest, it's wild. It can be really wild out here. Having the opportunity to create alongside so many of the artists has been really beneficial to my own practice, kind of like what I mentioned in the previous question. Especially getting to meet artists from a diversity of backgrounds and cultures, and aiding them in constructing a piece, and often making pieces that are challenging their own practice. And a lot of folks that come out here will make a sculpture for the first time, or are using materials or methods that they are only beginning to explore. And it's a learning process for us both. And I feel like we both really gained from that. And making my own work alongside of that is just really good for my health, mental health, and activity, and into my future developments. So really, it's just a big old fun time. You and I have had the opportunity to make these videos, which have also been a crazy wild time. And I think about it all the time, and I think I'll be thinking about it in a positive light for the rest of my life. And for those of you out there, make sure to follow me at Fake Rye Bread on Instagram, please. Be sure to see some of my new developments on there, as well as future Sculpture Saturday videos.
This is how Riley attracts the kitty cats at the sculpture park.
It's true. I mean, it's the only way. It's the only way I can really whisper to them. You know, it's like I whisper, then I take like a little bit of bread off and I throw it to them, and then they all come my way. They all come meowing my way.
Awesome. So we are so close to spring. And what do you have in store for us at JSP this spring?
Well, I'm working on my own pieces right now. A lot of them are still in like the modeling phase, or slowly getting more details. So hopefully in the future, they'll translate into some more large scale sculpture. Here at the park, we have a few exhibitions that are going to be going on in the spring, that are going to be utilizing the park landscape in ways that we haven't utilized before. So that's some exciting development. Please make sure to keep involved. Speaking to our audience, to keep involved and keep your eye out for that. We've got the barn restoration going on, so that's really exciting. That's been a project that's like long been in the works. So it's nice that that's going to get the restoration it deserves. We're going to be continuing our meadow restoration out here with both of our major meadows. We're going to be doing some more trail expansions around the park as we get more and more sculptures installed each year. We're trying to open up some more spaces around the park that can be engaging spots for artists to install in. So lots and lots. With springtime comes lots of great new changes here at the park.
Yeah, and be sure to check out every Saturday this Sculpture Saturday series that Riley and I have a blast making. Oh, yeah. And every last Saturday of the month, we have a Sculpture Saturday tour. So be sure to check those out, and Riley leads those as well.
Yes, please.
All right, you want to end with some images?
Yeah, let's do that. Give them the whole spiel.
Cool.
So this is shortly after that we had installed the steel frame in the ground. So now that it had rested for a bit, we had put out some boards in the ground, the skid loader, because it was pretty muddy out, but we still wanted to get this done. So we put out some plywood boards around the base of it, and we dragged some of the poles inside where Mel is operating the skid loader, and I'm by the pole getting ready to put it up.
Nice. So we got Mel on the skid loader there.
Awesome action stance over there. Yeah, it's starting to happen. Yeah, that's me prepping the pole, making sure it's sitting on the forks well enough, as well as checking the holes, because as we lift it up, the holes needed to be in a certain position, so when I go up to attach it, that it doesn't cause a bunch of hassle and we don't have to like move the pole a bunch while it's, you know, being suspended.
Yeah.
There we go, lifting it up, getting everything set up. So this is me getting the first side attached, which was used with steel cable, and then and there's some more of that. Yeah, and just putting over some steel sleeves and then clipping them on. Some nice smiles going on, lots of excitement. Yeah, and you can see the hole in the bottom left corner there. Yeah. Did you drill those through, or were they already part of the piece? Some of them were already on the piece. I'm not sure why that would have occurred with telephone poles, probably to attach utility equipment or like whatever, like generators or like power lines and everything like that. I did drill a few of my own holes just so they matched up, but most of them were already on the log, so I was able to just thread the cable through that way. This is an interesting angle too. You can see your supports that you welded on. Oh yeah. If I remember correctly, at first you weren't sure you were going to have those, and then you decided to put them in for more support. So there's an example of some changes. Yeah, and I'm glad I did, because it just provides more structural integrity to the piece.
Nice.
You can see in the upper left corner, there are those, those little guys. Those are the steel sleeves, the crimps, that I would slide on, and I would take a crimping tool, which essentially tightens them up to the point on 2 points in each of the sleeve, so that the steel cable doesn't run through at all. So it keeps the cable in position.
Nice.
There's one successful pull up in the air.
One. There's number 2.
That was a lot of fun.
Measuring. So
Measuring.
why are you measuring? What's going on?
So measuring it mostly to make sure that the pulls are spaced out enough, because you can see that they are at specific angles, based on the what I call like the marionette parts of the steel frame that are keeping them in place. I was spacing them out so that the poles didn't intersect with each other too much. I also just don't want them to hit each other very often. That can cause wear and tear and can be dangerous. But also visually, it's more interesting for them to be spaced out, so that as you walk around the piece, you can still observe all of their details without being impeded by one of the other poles.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful feature. I love that about it. All right, what's going on here?
This is our most complex step, the highest pole, getting up to the length that it needed to be. You can see near the base where all the chain is hanging from. We took a chain hoist, attached it up by one of the marionette parts of the frame, and found the balance point on this largest log. And went through the rigor of pulling down on the chains, so that the chain hoist would slowly bring the pull up. We would later use the skid loader to help balance that out and everything.
Nice. The sculpture stick.
Yeah, the sculpture stick. That was a fun little last minute creation that we had. It was more just kind of like what we would use the skid loader for. The sculpture stick was made to help manipulate the pole into the position that I deemed best for it. We talked about in a previous question, like how much this sculpture changed over the course of its creation. And this last little bit is like where it changed a lot. And thanks to the sculpture stick, I was able to change it to the point where I was extremely satisfied with its position.
Nice. And the final piece.
Man, it was cold that day, but we got it done. Thanks to all your guys' help.
And since this install day, have you changed the piece at all?
I went back and I trimmed a few of the excess details that were on there. Like I trimmed off a lot of the hay that I had picked up just from like being dragged around, and I cleaned it up a little bit, just because there was like some large like mud clods on there. I mean, you could tell in the photo, it was pretty rainy, pretty nasty cold. And then I took off the boards and cleaned up the site slightly. And as spring is around the corner, once it warms up a bit, I will need to do some manicurial touch-ups on the base of it, particularly putting some grass seed down and making sure that the base sits nice and solid. But otherwise, no, I left a lot of the artifacts that are on the poles as part of the original intention of being able to explore some of the untold history of these poles and what they gained over the course of their prior installations.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing with us, Riley. Everybody, when it's safe to do so and the ice is thawed, please come check out Fixation at Josephine Sculpture Park, and check out our Sculpture Saturday video and in-person tour series as well.
Yeah, please do. Thank you so much,
Bye.
Jeri. See ya.